tools and co-investing with other bilateral and multilateral agencies. The United States is poised to provide further support to this African's regional integration project on a more central note. We will recall that in 2018, the United States government launched the Prosper Africa project to coordinate US government resources and expand business opportunities in Africa with a goal of doubling the two-way trade between the US and the continent. The ACFTA thus provides a unique special purpose vehicle for the implementation of this laudable project in going forward, thereby leading the team to help enlighten our members today on this window of opportunity is no less than the CEO of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, Mr. Segun Awolowo, backed up by his respective directors in charge of international exports, multilateral and bilateral businesses, particularly in charge of the United States / Canada access. We appreciate the partnership of the NAPC with the Chamber. They've been very cooperative over the years, and it has indeed been a very fruitful cooperation in jointly implementing the AGUA initiative in Nigeria as accredited AGUA resource centers, respectively. Together, we are determined to keep the flag flying in encouraging exports and improving the fortunes of our members, that in that line of business, as well as encourage others to join this hugely beneficial trade. Once again, I welcome all our members to this highly educated webinar. I wish everyone an enlightening and very fruitful celebration. Thank you very much, and God bless you all, and enjoy the webinar. My name is Otumba Komolafe, National President. Thank you very much. Back to the DG, please.
Okay, thank you, sir. That was the National President of the Chamber, Otumba Komolafe. Thank you very much, sir. Now, may I call on the moderator, Chijioke Odo, Global Trade Advisory Leader, Deloitte, to take us through the whole program. Chijioke, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, okay.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Obadimo. I was actually waiting to see if Mr. Awolowo's presentation will be given, but I think we can move to the moderator session and come back to that. So thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to stand on existing protocols. Welcome again to the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce May webinar session with the team taking advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Area in driving exports. My name is Chijioke Odo, and I will be your moderator for today's session. The ACFTA, which is like the acronym for the African Continental Free Trade Area, should no longer be a strange acronym. And if it still is, then the question is, where have you been? The largest free trade agreement currently exists in Africa. It is called the ACFTA, and Nigeria is a party to the arrangement. Many have said to me, look, okay, we have gone down this road before with the regional free trade agreements. Nothing will come of the ACFTA. Besides, the ACFTA was operationalized since 1st of January 2021, and yes, we are yet to see any traction. My response will typically be, first of all, the structure of the ACFTA, if you've looked at it, is different. And some of the flaws that have made the regional agreements as we know it, regional trade agreements as we know it, that suboptimal have been removed. These have been addressed in the ACFTA. In fact, the ACFTA is one of the reasons The suboptimal nature of the regional trade agreement is one of the reasons why, the African leaders decided to bring forth the ACFTA. Secondly, implementation of free trade agreements around the world are never smooth sailing when they take off. They're still always teething problems. And if you look at the fact that the ACFTA is a very large, it's the largest free trade agreement in the world, then you could understand why 3 months, 4 months down the line, we could still have some of these teething problems, which will be addressed. And then lastly, would you rather be pessimistic and adopt a watch and see approach, or would you rather plan on the basis that there will be some benefits, and if there is none, you walk away? It takes some time to prepare a business or country to take advantage of a free trade agreement. So if you start planning when others are already implementing, you're already behind the curve, and you'll likely be among those complaining about unfair treatment. I would say that it is crunch time, and the strategies we adopt at this time, and importantly, the implementation thereof, will ultimately decide where we play, how we play, and if we'll win. So where are we? What is the plan? What needs to be done? Who needs to do what? These questions and more will be covered at today's webinar. We are grateful to have with us today very distinguished guests who would in a short while share their thoughts on the ACFTA, with specific focus on how we can use the ACFTA to drive exports. Specifically, they'll be looking at how we can position and sustain local industries for regional competitiveness. The panel session is scheduled for 40 minutes, which is never enough time to have a robust conversation on any aspect of the ACFTA. However, we have designed this panel session to ensure we get the most of our guests. From our guests, I've carefully put together a couple of questions which we would ask them, and hope that in 3 minutes, for each question, our guests are able to provide their responses and provide some context to where their intervention points will be as we look to get the ACFTA off the ground in Nigeria. As the panel session progresses, please drop your questions in the chat box, and we would attempt to take these questions at the end of this session. On this note, and without further delay, I would like to introduce our panelists. I think, first of all, going by the agenda, I would like to introduce Mr. Olusegun Awolowo, Executive Director, CEO, Nigerian Export Promotion Council, who is being represented, Mr. Badimu, is correct me, by Mrs. Uduak. Mr. Badimu?
Yes. Okay, so thank you, Chijioke. We'll just take the main presentation now by the Nigerian Export Promotion Council before we now go into the panel session. So okay. Let me call on the team from NEPC. I think Mr. Elia Yaro is opening up presentations on their behalf. Mr. Yaro, are you there?
Yes, I'm there, sir. Good morning, sir.
Okay, you are welcome. You are welcome. And I could see Mr. Yodele also has logged in. I'm watching out for Mrs. Toko and Peter. So meanwhile, you can proceed with the main presentation.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, you are welcome.
All protocols observed. On behalf of my Executive Director, Mr. Olusegun Awolowo, I wish to present this paper, taking advantage of ACFTA in driving export, positioning and sustaining local industries for regional competitiveness.
They're not in reality. They're on a chilling pea. Like,
can you hear me?
Make this whole export thing just, easy. Because they are chilling.
Hello?
Yeah, I do the Zoom meetings. Yeah, not curious.
Hello? Okay. So taking advantage of ACFTA in driving export, positioning and sustaining local industries for regional competitiveness, presented by Mr. Olusegun Awolowo, Executive Director, CEO, Nigerian Export Promotion Council, at a Zoom conference. So this is the outline of the paper. I have about 8 subtopics, but I will discuss more on the potential benefit to medium and small scale industries in Nigeria, envisage challenges way forward, and NEPC intervention. So I will discuss these 4 areas more. Continental regional integration is inevitable for economic and sustainable growth in Africa. The African continental area has about 55 countries, African countries, that have signed into that agreement, with a total population of about 1.2 billion. And these communities is made up of about 6 regional groups. We have the ECOWAS, we have COMESA, we have SADC, we have CENSAT, we have the Arab Maghreb Union, we have the East African Community Group. So now, what is the benefit of AFCTA? You see, it is a single continental market for goods and services in Africa, free movement of business persons and investments. It creates a one-stop shop for cross-border transactions, thereby easing the cost of doing business in the continent. It will also remove trade barriers, provide enterprises opportunity to thrive, improve industrialization through building up industries capacity. That is, our industries in Nigeria now will have more market to export made in Nigerian goods. Encourage SMEs to improve their infrastructure to continental level. That means they will go to an international level whereby there will be more intra-African trade. Nigerian SMCs will be more competitive. There will be also free movement of goods and services, free movement of people and investment. SMEs in the services subsector will be given more opportunities to penetrate the global market. That is not just commodities, but we are looking at services sector, which has a lot of gains and benefits. In terms of bank, we have Nigerian banks, we have Nigerian entertainment industries making wave in the global market. More trade and investment opportunities will be open for SMEs, MSs, improve wealth creation and employment generation. That means poverty reduction, a lot of employment. Currently, we have about 33% of unemployment in Nigeria. With the coming of this agreement, more employment will be created because industries will be booming. SMEs will have expanded market for their products and services. That is upscaling production. More goods will be produced for these 54 other African countries. Increase in trade and investment within Africa. Overall economic development in Nigeria. These are some of the challenges that we will face. Despite efforts by Nigerian SMEs to survive the harsh economic realities, these are still marred by the following challenges: infrastructure, lack of efficient railway system, no sea links. That is, you are talking of sea lines, connection between the African countries, no good road network, multiple police, customs, local government roadblocks, checkpoints. Just we can see between Lagos, the semi border, what is happening. Uncompetitive environment. Industrialists provide their water, roads, electricity, and so forth. It's added to the cost of production. Large volume of informal trade leading to high risks and loss of benefit to businesses. That means there is no recorded trade, which it will not enable us to look at the aspect of trade, whether it is growing or not. Port uncompetitiveness in Nigeria, we knew what is happening at the Lagos port. Part of the challenges also include lack of single currency. We have different currencies within Africa. So we need to harmonize that aspect. Conflicting role of the Nigerian Customs Service in trade facilitation, revenue generation. There are government policies that at times clashes with revenue generation demand. So to which the customs may be aiming for a higher revenue target, which may affect such kind of transactions. Insecurity in the Northeast, not only Northeast, spreading to other parts of the country. Even Niger State, we can see what is happening, which may affect some of the industries. High incidence of taxation in businesses, policy inconsistencies. That is, some of the government policies may not enhance such kind of trade facilitation. High level of corruption, among others. Required actions. What do we do? The following measures must be put in place for Nigerian SMEs to benefit maximally from the AFCTA. One, intensify the ease of doing business in Nigeria that has been introduced by the present administration, and which the government is still working upon to improve all segments, all sectors, at least to improve so that it will facilitate trade. Strengthen trade support institutions to enable them deliver on their mandate, especially NEPC, NEXIM, Shippers Council, and NEBSA, and so forth. Create and improve export incentive, just like we have the Export Development Fund, the Export Expansion Grant Fund, which will enable Nigerian exporters to compete effectively in the international market. Improvement in our overall facilities. What are NEPC intervention? These are programs, projects that the Council has been doing with a view to facilitate the African Free Trade Continental Area. As the agency statutorily mandated to promote export of non-oil goods in Nigeria, the NEPC has proactively initiated some interventions towards creating an enabling environment for Nigerian exporters to access the AFCA market. This is because we see the NEPC as a focal point for ensuring the success of AFCA, since the cross of AFCA is about export trade. This includes capacity building, that is to prepare and position SMEs for the African intercontinental trade area. We want to position them so that they can compete effectively. How? Technical sessions for selected MNCs to develop their market entry strategies. They undergo different kinds of training in order to have market access strategies and techniques, especially in terms of quality of food, food safety certification, and successful export marketing. Sessions organized in 3 geopolitical locations for the first phase, Kano, Lagos, and Port Harcourt. Issues like rule of origin, trade remedies, designated competent authority. All issues affecting that aspect is being handled by experts. Export competency development program, further training for SMEs with requisite skill to penetrate international market. Recently, we had trainings conducted by Center for the Promotion of Imports in Netherlands, and also the Italian Trade Agency, whereby Nigerian exporters have been trained on how to produce goods and services, especially fruits and commodities, to enter into the European market. They can also use that platform to export into other African countries. To assist SMEs to secure hazard analysis, technical training such as the hazard analysis and critical control point certification in order to facilitate access to certified niche export market. We're also facilitating certification trainings like Global Gap, Fair Trade, Kosher, Halal, etc. Capacity building. So we are also, the council too is also undergoing training in quality management system. So currently, as an organization, NEPC is positioning itself for excellent service delivery. As we subject exporters to various certifications process, we also subject ourselves to similar processes. Need to instill confidence in not only our exporters, but other international organizations. To this end, the NEPC is presently undergoing ISO 9001, 2015 certification. It is a globally recognized quality management system certification facilitated by Standard Organization of Nigeria. We also have the issue of incentive. The Export Expansion Grant Fund, we have the EDF is to be used to provide financial assistance to private sector exporting companies to cover part of their expenses in respect of export promotion activities, such as market research, such as market surveys, such as even cost of their logistics, at times even sending their sample. The fund provides an avenue to prepare, facilitate, and support Nigerian exporters to penetrate not only the African market, but the global market. The council is currently collecting applications from SMEs for financial assistance in respect of EDF, that is Export Development Fund, component of Export Expansion Facility Program, approved by the federal government. We also have this scheme that we call Domestic Export Warehouse. It's a scheme that is structured to reduce the challenges exporters face in moving their goods and cargoes from hinterland to ports. That is the issue of logistics. It is a proposed one-stop facility terminal for storage of products, packaging and labeling, pre-shipment inspection, and fumigation of export designated goods in preparation for the ultimate transportation to the ports. Loaded release lorries will be automatically loaded on the MPA terminal call-up system before leaving the warehouse, whereby reducing lead time for containers entering the port. This one is another alternative development just to reduce the load that is taking place at Apapa and the Tinkan Island ports. So this one is another alternative platform that has been made to reduce that logistic problem we have at the seaport. Next. The NEPC is farming up arrangement for the establishment of export trade houses in selected countries in Africa, that is within the ECOWAS region. Some of the benefits of the trade houses include reduction in cost of logistics for SMEs, which the exporters will not only use within ECOWAS, but even into other African countries. Provision of permanent exhibition showrooms, act as a clearinghouse and warehouse for making Nigerian goods, contribute to export trade and deepening market penetration strategy. This is a collaboration with Man Export Group and relevant agencies, Nasima Export Group, Export Trading Company. That is also another strategy. It is a public-private partnership arrangement facilitated by the African Export-Import Bank to aggregate products from SMEs across the value chain and prepare such products for export. Other programs that the Council is also intervening is Women in Export. Women are being trained in various aspects of exports, in terms of packaging, in terms of quality, in terms of all the value chains in areas of such as leather and leather products, establishment of Human Capital Development Center for apparels and garments in Lagos, conduct of market research and intelligence to position Nigerian exporters information of market opportunities in the 53 African markets, organization of solo exhibitions for making Nigerian goods and services in other African countries, administration of appropriate export incentives such as the Export Expansion Grant Fund, tax relief on interest income. So all these facilities are being made with a view to make the Nigerian exporters to be competitive so that they can go into more African markets. So our intention is that we will not just stay, buy and watch. Recently, we have a program with the Tanzanian embassy on Monday, which they have held a program in order to sell their country and products. So we need also, which the Council has been doing, different and programs with a view to prepare Nigerian exporters to penetrate into the African market successfully. Next. Promotion and support of Nigerian services such as Nollywood films, ICT, that is information communication technology, music, arts and culture, financial and banking services. We have Nigerian banks, especially in Tanzania. The meeting we had, Dangote is already there. GT Bank is there. UBA Bank is there. Facilitation of certification training for exporters on the various certification programs, such as HS, hazard analysis and critical control point, organic, and also qualifying for third country listing for honey and honey products. Engagement at the highest level of government to improve non-oil export ecosystem. We also have the zero oil plan. NEPC developed the zero oil plan in response to the recession in 2016 following the crash in international crude of oil, which has come down from over $100 to less than $30 or $40. So this one is an alternative plan to save Nigeria from depending on oil, a mono product that will make the Nigerian economy not to be sustainable. The zero oil plan is strategy for boosting foreign exchange earnings through non-oil sector, mainly rolling out export policies for 22 major products, which includes, and the target is that it's about $30 billion is being expected from these products: cotton, rice, leather, gold, soya, cocoa, petrochemicals, fertilizer, palm oil, rubber, cement, tomato, banana, oranges, cashew, cassava, sesame seed, spices, etc. Commencing export projects and investment tracking in each state of the Federation, which we target as one state, one product. Each of the 36 states in Nigeria is taking an exportable product that it has comparative advantage with a view to develop it for the international market. So these are some of the products Nigeria can export. You can have a look next. Conclusion: Nigeria will surely benefit from the African continental area, as it will definitely boost trade and economic growth. However, for SMEs to achieve their individual and collective objectives, all government institutions and agencies having roles to play must strategize and ensure that they deliver on their mandates. Just like the Council has been doing, There are other export-related agencies. We have the Shippers Council, we have NEPSA, we have Nexim Bank, we have SMIDAN that are preparing exporters in different aspects of capacity buildings with a view to prepare them so that they can penetrate into the other African countries successfully. Yes, thank you for listening. This is our website. This is our email. In case of other questions, those who want to see more of our activities, the intervention that the Council is carrying on with a view to prepare Nigerian exporters penetrate into the African market. Thank you for listening.
Okay, before we go back to, thank you very much for that brilliant presentation, Mr. Yaro. Your colleagues from NEPC are also on the panel, just in case. Before I go back to TJOK to continue the moderation, may I recognize the presence of Mrs. Violet Abu Kadri. She's chairman of our Trade Mission Committee, and she'll be taking the vote of thanks later on in the program. Mrs. Abu Kadri, you are welcome. So, TJOK, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Obadimu. And thank you, Mr. Olusegun Awolowo, ably represented by Mr. Yaro. Again, it's Chidoke Udo, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. Having listened to Mr. Awolowo as ably represented by Mr. Yaro, there is no doubt that the NEPC will be a critical stakeholder in ensuring Nigerian business effectively in the new market. In a short while, we'll be diving a little deeper into some of the things Mr. Yaro mentioned in his presentation. And of course, we will also be speaking with our other panelists, Mr. Fasheru and Mr. Ayodeji Balogun. We are grateful to have with us today these very distinguished guests. And in a short while, they will share their thoughts around the ACFTA. I'm sure they have a lot to say, with specific focus on how we can use the ACFTA to drive exports and ensure that Nigeria is able to win in this new market. The panel session, again, is scheduled to run for 40 minutes. It's never enough time to have a conversation on the ACFTA. The ACFTA is such a broad subject that even if you want to talk about, the challenges and why, as we did very early when the ACFTA was introduced to the public around the challenges and why it may not work and the hazards and the issues being faced by Nigerian businesses. The point is, it's a lot more to do with just challenges. There are also opportunities, and every business, everyone who looks to benefit, who looks to do well in Africa, will see the ACFTA as not a problem, but as an opportunity to expand their business fortunes. We have designed this panel session to ensure we get the most from our guests. We have a couple of carefully sourced questions which we hope to ask, and we hope that maybe in 3-4 minutes they will be able to share their thoughts. We also recognize that participants will have some questions, and we will try to finish, give enough time for participants to ask questions. So if you have any question, please drop it in the chat box, and I'll try to take a couple before we close the panel session. Without further ado, I'd like to, and Mr. Badimu can help me, who exactly will be representing the NEPC, because I recognize that Mr. Awolowo is not around on the panel session.
Yes, I will handle it.
Okay, Mr. Yaro, fantastic.
Yes, I will handle the questions. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you so much, sir. So we'll have from the NEPC, Mr. Yaro. We will also have Mr. Ayodeji Balogun, the CEO of Afex Commodities Exchange Limited. Mr. Balogun, welcome. Good morning. And then we'll also have Mr. Tola Fasheru. Okay. And then we also have Mr. Tola Fasheru. He's the president of African Cashew Alliance. Good morning, sir. Welcome.
Good morning.
All right. Excellent. So, distinguished guests, have a couple of questions. As indicated earlier on, let's try to see if we can do it in 3-4 minutes. And it's very difficult, especially when you get in the mood and the question is something that is very is we are very passionate about. But let's also try to leave some time for participants who are eager to ask you questions. So, Mr. Yaro, I'll then turn to you very quickly. You know, the ACFTA will create a single market of about 1 billion people in Africa with an economic size of about $3 trillion. Such a huge market is what makes the agreement an interesting proposition for Nigerian enterprises looking to expand their business. That said, it is one thing to encourage exports of Nigerian products to the African markets. It's another thing to produce the goods and get them out of the country securely and expeditiously. What is NEPC doing to ensure the logistics of exports out of Nigeria is not a problem for Nigerian exporters when trading has started, but when we begin to say, look, we have the instruments ready to start trading within the African continent? Mr. Yaro.
At the council's level, we look at these critical issues very well. If we could remember what has happened at the Tinkan Island port regarding the congestion at the Apapa Tinkan Island port, my executive director, Mr. Segun Awolo, is a member of that team that has been in that group with a view of solving that problem. The exit point of doing exports, that is the seaport, is a very critical area. And in view of that regard, effort is being made to look at other alternative ports like the Port Harcourt port, the Calabar port. Effort is being made not just to depend on Lagos port alone, so that other seaports can be developed. Some dedicated ports are being specially taken into consideration, whereby the government is making efforts in order to turn them around. Because without having a good logistic seaports, airports, and other border points, it will not be possible to carry out such goods outside. In the course of discussion of my paper, I made mention of domestic export warehouse, which is another alternative arrangement that is being made as an alternative, so that exporters will use that platform. You know, it will be like a bonded warehouse in Lagos. Once the good has been within that bonded warehouse, it will go straight to the seaport without any barriers, in view of what is happening at the Lagos seaport. Then the other alternative is the next port trade, what we call export trade house, whereby a loading bay will be also made in Lagos. Then a bonded truck will be made to carry such kind of goods to Togo Lome. So that Togo Lome, the essence of that catchment area is the West African markets. But we are thinking of going beyond West Africa. You know, Nigeria is a major factor within the ECOWAS market. Nigeria, Egypt, and South Africa. These three countries are the major players. And there is the level of competition. The other competitors are looking at the population of Nigeria, they want to come in. And what we have to do, we have to prepare ourselves very well in terms of this infrastructure. If we don't make it very well, our export cannot go out of the country. That's a critical infrastructure. Not just that one, the issue of power. You see, the issue of the roads. All these things have to be made very well. If you could remember, Morocco at a point wants to come into ECOWAS. Morocco is looking at the population of Nigeria, which is about 200 million. And Nigeria now is an opportunity for us to look at the other African markets. That is about 1 billion, if you look at the total population. Then if you look at the cumulative GDP of this 1.2 billion, is about 3.4 billion. So there is a lot of opportunity for Nigeria to generate foreign exchange, to create employment, and also to sell made in Nigerian commodities in the international market. So government is making all efforts. We also have the Export Expansion Facility Program. An approval has been made to carry out market research in about 20 African countries recently under that intervention fund, whereby the council will carry out market research, get intelligence report, look at areas where there are opportunities for making Nigerian goods, especially value-added goods. We are not talking of raw commodities. We are talking of finished goods, not just cocoa seeds. We are talking of cocoa powder. We are talking of processed cashew nuts. We are talking of apparels and garments. We are talking of Nigerian films and so many other things. We have the capacity. It's just to prepare ourselves very well so that we can be competitive in this area. Because South Africa is there, Egypt is there.
Mr. Yaro, I should just stop you there.
Okay.
Some of our many of our participants, and I'm sure the public will, if they're listening here, they'll say, hey, but we've seen several presentations from the NEPC several years ago with quite similar plans, very similar, very fantastic views. But we still have some of those challenges that the NEPC committed to fixing 5 years ago, 10 years ago. We can say, okay, we're still part of an ECOWAS region that probably the free trade agreement wasn't working so much. And so we didn't feel it so much. Now we have the ACFTA. It's been operationalized. In only a matter of weeks, trading can start because the instruments will be ready. So why should I believe, or what is different? Should I be excited about some of these things that you have presented and you are saying now? And I know that, look, we said before, now it.
Just like you said, recently the government has approved 50 billion naira export expansion facility program. That means it shows political commitment whereby all these facilities are being put into place. As I'm telling you, very soon the executive director will be going to Togo with a view to locating where this Nespo Trade House will be sited. The same thing with the loading bay in Lagos. We are aware of what is happening at the Lagos seaport. Recently, Starlink carried out some export using the Calabar seaport.
Yeah.
We have the Port Harcourt seaport. So effort is being made to fix some of these infrastructural problems we have. Because if you don't fix it, others will come and take over our economy.
Is there a timeline, Mr. Yaro? Is there a timeline?
Pardon?
Is there a timeline for when some of these things will be fixed? I mean, do you have a timeline in your presentation when these things will be completed?
Yes, some of the funds have been released. So it is already ongoing. Effort is being made to put it in place.
All right.
Like the export trade houses. The Man Export Group are part of it. So we are looking at it from the point of public-private sector participation, so that people will not think, it's government. No, the private sector are deeply, NASIMA are involved, Man Export Group are involved, Nexim Bank is involved. They are all major stakeholders.
All right, Mr. Yaro, thank you. We'll come back. Yes. There's a lot more to ask the NEPC, so we'll come back. I'd like to turn to Mr. Balogun. I mean, this is your commodity trading is your forte. So commodity exchange markets all over the world are notable for driving and facilitating trade by connecting suppliers and buyers, right? As a leading commodity exchange in Nigeria, what has been your experience in inter-Africa commodity trading? What has been the challenges? Do you think the ACFTA would provide a solution to some of the things, some challenges that you have seen on the ground?
So thank you very much. So first, to put things in context, ACFTA is probably going to be the most important thing in trade on the continent over the next 2 decades. Also, to put it in context, AFTA is not it's not a quick win. It is a big win. So it will take considerable time and effort to get it in place. So a lot of time when we speak, I struggle to think both as a trader, but also as an economic student. And it's important that we put things in perspective. And at the core of whatever we position ourselves is a question of competitiveness. When you open yourself up to markets, it opens opportunities, but it also opens up for threats if you don't fundamentally address the issue of competitiveness. By and large, answering the question more specifically, there are going to be 2 ways. When I think of AFCT and I look at it sort of like a 10-year horizon, I see 2 opportunities. So one is that Africa can trade as a bloc. So today we are at a disadvantage because our trades are very fragmented. When you're buying sesame, you're buying from each country and it's a small lot. And each country is sort of defined by what it produces. When you're trading cocoa, it's each country, even though, you know, West Africa alone contributes to about 75% of cocoa trade. Being able to trade as one block and one economic block with similar tariffs, similar grading standards, and similar protocols increases our competitiveness and allows us to be able to definitely ask for more in terms of our fair share of the value being traded. Now, the second one is also that is then the opportunity to trade between ourselves. And that is going to be a struggle until we are able to invest as much as needed on our infrastructure. So Africa invests, you know, less than about 3% of its GDP on infrastructure on an annual basis, as compared with the OECD countries, which invest above 40% of their GDP, or about 25 to 40%, depending on the country, of their GDP on infrastructure. Now, if I'm going to sell maize from Nigeria to Ghana, I need to put it on a road. Today, that road is shorter. Accra is closer to Lagos than Lagos is to Kaduna. But going that road, I need to pass 5 different ports, probably about 7 to 8 different roadblocks, and then on, you know, unimaginable hurdles that the truck has to go through. So this infrastructure, and this could be done in 3 hours if you had a rail line that connected the West African trade corridor. So you know, I think the medium-term opportunity will be more competitive trade with the rest of the world, and then the more longer term, if we do address the infrastructure challenges, we'll definitely start to drive more sort of intra-Africa trade. Thank you.
Mr. Balogun, I'll come back to you on what exactly your role will be in the entire spectrum of the conversation.
Absolutely.
But I just want to go to Mr. Pasher very quickly and just ask non-tariff barrier. I know we talk about commodities, and then you are in cashew, and of course in Nigeria, in Africa, that's a heavy hitter. So as you move commodities, goods across the African region, we've seen that non-tariff barriers have been recognized as one of the major threats to intra-Africa trade. The ACFTA, as we speak, has made provisions for eliminating these barriers, like some other agreements have done in the past. But in your view, Mr. Pasher, what are the major non-tariff barriers you have seen being encountered on the ground? And how can they be successfully eliminated under the ACFTA?
Thank you very, very much to be on the platform. Definitely, as it's been said, ACFTA is very, very key to us, and particularly as a nation, as a country that is one of the biggest economies in Africa, it portends a whole lot of great opportunities for us. I mean, even when you look at our size, we're talking about, I mean, the total size about 1.2 billion people, and then Nigeria having a chunk of it. And then when you look at the GDP of each of these countries, Nigeria rates very high, I mean, amongst the various nations in Africa. So I think, and I believe that Nigeria is positioned to benefit the most when we look at what is available for everyone under this trade agreement. So I'm excited about it, but like it's been said earlier on, there are a lot of issues that could mitigate our ability to harness the benefits and the opportunities that are there. Of course, first of all, you're talking about the non-tariff barriers. I think there are some issues that need to be looked at, even for this agreement or this trade opportunity to flourish. The first is the transportation. Okay, transportation is a major barrier within Africa. It takes you a shorter time to transport commodities from here to Europe, for instance, than to move from one country in Africa to the other. Okay, what is the effort of the maritime sector? What are they going to do concerning this laudable program that we have? What are the presidents of nations in Africa? What are they going to do about it to see that it is easy to transport by sea goods from Nigeria, for instance, to Kenya? These are issues that have been there for a while. There are, even within the African structure, I mean, of course, with the agreement I've noted, there are areas of surpluses and areas of deficits. You see a country like Kenya, for instance. Kenya has just a little bit of, maybe not up to 10,000 tons of cashew that they produce here, but they process all that they have, but they don't have enough nuts. Meanwhile, we have countries that have 800,000 tons, like Ivory Coast, Nigeria, to 250,000 tons. And we move these cargoes to Vietnam, to India, when we have our brothers, just across that require this commodity. But why is all of this not happening? The maritime sector has not woken up to say, okay, can we get vessels? Because these are issues, it's good to put up agreements and stuff, but there are some fundamental things that will make it work. Okay, so that is an area which I think is a major barrier to the achievement of intra African trade. The other aspect is there must be an understanding among the various agencies, government agencies in Nigeria. There has to be a proper education, sensitization, enlightenment for them. For instance, custom doesn't look at export. If you talk of giving advantage to export, for instance, the export expansion grants that we've had over the years, to remember, when the certificates are given, they say no, it's affecting the revenue. Okay, so if that is still the mentality, there will be blockages, and this trade would not be facilitated because custom will be everywhere. Okay, so there has to be, I'm bringing very, very strategic, challenges of, problem areas, So they need to understand that your loss in revenue, for instance, by way of reduction in what you're earning, doesn't mean that the country is losing. When I was taught in secondary school about balance of trade, they told me that the country should look at exporting more than importing. That by so doing, you do more, you do better. How did China achieve all that they achieved? They kept exporting. They had a policy in the last 20, 30 years. Today, they're where they are. So it's a consolidated program that we must have, as we had the ACFTA. There must be a all-round working together, okay, of all the units. The duplication of services, of agency operations in Nigeria, all of that has to be looked at, So the area of ease of doing business, you mentioned it, the port problem that is facing us up till now, there has to be a solution, and a quick solution. Other than that, we are not going to be, we will have the opportunities, we will have the potentials, but we would not be able to realize these potentials, as we always say. But for me, it's a fantastic idea. With this, industrialization will come up. I mean, if there is a proper, well-strategized program concerning, I mean, I expect that based on this program, there should be a lot of special export processing zones worked out strategically for this purpose. Okay, where the shipment even from here, from Nigeria, and all these zones will be seamless to wherever they're going. You know, so there has to be a connectivity. There has to be a synergy in terms of the idea and in terms of the implementation. You know, so that all these infrastructure issues are resolved, where I call industries that are related to this idea, these projects of ACFTA, they should be supported, okay, and reduced. All these barriers should be taken off so that we can achieve. It's a big market. Nigeria, we call ourselves giants. We really, if we are serious, this is an opportunity to show that we are giants, and then with this we can reduce a lot of our poverty, and Nigeria will be put in a better place. And then, of course, this will drive our mind towards export. We should do export, you know, as compared to what we have today. To do too much of import, too much of concentration on import, and the foreign exchange is depleting every day, and we concentrate more on oil. NEPC has done a fantastic job. They've had clear plans, zero oil plan, and they've done quite a lot in facilitation. But every other connecting agency has to be properly brought on board to see that we are not working against each other.
Absolutely, Mr. Bashir. I mean, almost every session I either speak or moderate. You always hear the Nigerian customs come up in the conversation because, I mean, for good reason. They are the ones at the ports, and so if they do well, you know, they are commended. If they don't do as well as we would want them, they are called out. So, I mean, it's one I know that the National Action Committee are working on a daily basis to try to see how we can ensure that there is efficiency at the port. But I pick one very quickly. The issue of transportation. You talk about, you know, Kenya having 10 million tons, or 10,000 tons, 10 million tons, and then Nigeria having about 800 million tons. The transportation problem, maritime issue, who needs to wake up? The maritime industry from a private sector perspective, or the government? Because someone would say, where the opportunities, the private sector always goes and finds a solution, because there is money to be made. So if there is 800 million tons to be moved out of Nigeria, and I know that if I can get maritime fixed as a private sector player, I will be the one taking the 800 million tons around, and I'll be the one making the money. So is it the government that needs to wake up, or is it private sector, or is it both?
Well, I think it's both. I think it's both. And then, of course, Africa has to realize that nobody's going to solve their problems for them. All the time we wait for the developed economies. I mean, if you look at the masks of this world, the CMA of this world, you know, the PIL of this world, they are all foreign companies. And so if there's going to be something, maybe you're loading a commodity, first of all, it goes to Europe before, you know, it comes back and all of that. We got to wake up. So both the private sector and government need to sit down, because that's one of the things militating against free inter-African trade. So it's both ways. But of course, you know that when it comes to maritime thing, it has regulations, and so private sector needs to work closely with government and see that it works. But that's a major area, and I am aware that thoughts have been coming up concerning these aspects. But we've never, in 5 years, 10 years, we've never come up with anything.
Right, right, Mr. Fasher. Thanks. I will come back to you on another very important subject. Mr. Yaro, if you're still there, I'd like to follow up on our previous conversation. Nigerian products have had some bad experience. I think it's your presentation regarding quality. Again, it's one thing to say you want to compete in the African market. You fix all your infrastructure. You fix all the issues that Mr. Fasheru. You fix some of the issues that Mr. Balogun have talked about. But it's another thing to have products that will be acceptable in other markets.
Okay.
So what is the NPC doing to help acceptability of Nigerian products in Africa? Do the exporters themselves have a role to play? As a consumer, when I go into the grocery store, yes, I look at price, but I also look at quality. And so if a particular product doesn't meet a particular quality, regardless of how I feel as a Nigerian and I want to be patriotic, I also want to buy quality products. So what is the NPC doing around ensuring that Nigerian producers, exporters, have the quality to be able to move, the products are quality enough to be able to move and compete in the African market?
Okay, before I tackle this question, let me look at the vision of the council. It says to make the world a marketplace for Nigerian non-oil goods and services.
Right.
So our goal, we are looking at the market, the world, but our catchment area now is Africa.
Yes.
Opportunity exists between African countries, but there are requirements for such kind of goods to enter different countries and their markets. So what the council is doing is that we have to ensure that such goods meet international quality requirements, whereby we do different series of technical trainings. We have been getting a lot of support from, what do you call it, the AGUA. We organize certification trainings. There are different certifications. You cannot just export a good. That good has to meet the requirement of that country. Yeah. And since the African market is being harmonized now, so we conduct different series of trainings in terms of packaging, in terms of certification, in terms of definition of even the goods. If you could remember, I made mention of hazard analysis and critical control points.
That's correct.
Just like the kind of services we get from the AGUA. There is this issue of FDA.
Yes.
There are other certifications like the halal, if you're exporting to Islamic countries. So you have to meet their requirements. If we're exporting to Europe, we have to meet the European standard. And the European standard is one. So now we are looking at our own African market. So if Nigeria is to export to South Africa, to export to Egypt, or export even to Ghana, our neighboring countries, we have to make sure we meet the standard requirement of such goods. Whatever kind of goods. Is it fashion? So is it food? So it has to meet the requirement of such countries. Because without meeting the requirements, it will not be allowed to enter into that market.
Can I stop you there quickly? So I'm referring to the point where you have a Nigerian product that meets the minimum standard, just like you have different cars in Nigeria. But
yes.
If I ask you to walk into a dealer shop, there's only one or two cars that you would typically buy, that you will want to buy, Mr. Yero, your preference. I'm not talking about whether they're good or not, your preference. And that's because there are certain things in that vehicle or certain things in that shirt or belt or shoe that you naturally like. So all the shoes you see in that store meet the minimum requirements, but there is just consumers just have an inclination for a particular brand, a particular product because they feel it's quality. So I'm referring to, on one hand, meeting that minimum standard. Yes. On the other hand, having those products that will appeal to consumers in those other African regions.
Yes. Normally what we do, if you look at the marketing 4Ps, you have the product, you have the promotion, you have the place, which is the logistic, the destination. Then you have to look at the price. You are not the only producer. There are so many producers. There are other African countries that are competing. So our intention here is to make the Nigerian exporter become competitive. in terms of quality, in terms of price, in terms of packaging, which it has to meet that minimum international requirement standards. You know, we have NAFDAC. Yes. We have the Nigerian Agricultural Quarantine Service. Whatever level of kind of a product, if it is food or if it is manufactured products, or if it is even drug, it has to meet the minimum standard acceptable in the international market. We work with Standard Organization of Nigeria. We work with certification companies whereby we organize different kind of trainings, you know, capacity building trainings. Just last week, we had a webinar conference with World Trade Center in America, whereby we are trying to train at least about 20 Nigerian exporters so that they can acquire the FDA. That is the Food and Drug Administration certificate. You know, without that certification, no Nigerian good will enter into the American market. These are part of the challenges we have. The AGUA platform is there, but unfortunately, the volume and value of Nigerian export into the American market is very little compared to what I think Mauritius exports over close to either clothing, I think, close to about $90-something billion. You know, you're not looking at the size of the country, you're looking at how competent, how strong is that country doing in terms of producing goods that goes into the international market, not just looking at our size.
Right. And Mr. Yara, I assume that there's a lot of work the NEPC is doing and obviously needs to do to ensure that Nigerian products are able to do well on the shelves of African stores. So that when consumers walk in, I mean, even if it's just finishing it alone, you know, sometimes people talk about finishing of products. Yes. Even if it's just finished alone, the Nigerian products are able to do well. I'll come back to you on some of the things that you think we should, in terms of rounding up what government and private sector should be doing, you know, to ensure that we're able to do well. But I'd like to go, Mr. Balogun, very quickly.
Sorry, just 1 minute.
Okay, sir.
It's four-pronged. You know, we have different departments in the council that look at marketing issues. Another department takes care of the product, that is the product certification. There is another unit that takes care of information. Then there is another unit that takes care of assistance, the kind of assistance.
Yes.
Yesterday, I think we have training for SMEs in Jos with the Office of the Vice President.
Okay.
That is arming the SMEs so that they can prepare for this African free trade continental area. It's not just the Dangotes, the Boa. We are looking at the small scale industry so that they can compete. In terms
and these seminars, Mr. Yarrow, they are publicized?
It's been publicized, yes, on our platform, even in the radio, in the media.
Okay.
It's been publicized. We work with the Office of the Vice President, which is taking care of the SMEs programs.
Okay.
We have
Okay, that's good. I haven't heard some of them, but I'm sure there's a lot of work going at the background to get these things to the SMEs. Mr. Balogun, if you're there, you talk about that. I'll come back to what the role of commodity exchange will be in driving value creation in our local industry, and rightly positioning them to benefit from the ACFTA. What is your role? What do you think will be the role of commodity exchanges like yourselves to ensuring that buyers can meet sellers? It can be a lot more. We can upskill intra-Africa trade, because one of the things that, you know, I spoke with a buyer recently, and he always buys from I think from Germany, and he says, "Look, I buy from there because they are the only ones I know that supply this product." But I said, "Look, I mean, I've not done a lot of market research, but I know this particular product is probably manufactured in Seychelles." And he says he never knew, and this is someone in procurement. So, I mean, sometimes it's always about us creating that connectivity. So, I mean, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but what do you think the role of FX will be?
Thank you very much. So fundamentally, there are three things that a commodities exchange will do in terms of putting structure to the market. So the first thing is it will help to ensure that there is standardization and counterparty risks are managed. So if a seller and a buyer are trading with each other, there will always be nuances and settlement disputes and issues that need to be resolved. What the Commodities Exchange does is that essentially, from a structure standpoint, the seller is selling to the exchange and the buyer is buying from the exchange. And the exchange provides the security for both sides, both for the physical commodities, but also the risk of cash settlements. And especially if you're looking at intra-Africa trade, we'll definitely get into the zone of currency settlements, time arbitrage issues, price changes, and things like that. Different grading standards for different countries, delivery warehouses, all those practicalities of how the trade will be closed at a very scalable manner are things that the exchange helps to bring in contracts. That's why Hershey's will buy cocoa from anybody in Cote d'Ivoire without worrying with that person, because they just go to an exchange and put up a trade, and somebody else does the other part of going to source for the physicals and delivering it, and then the transaction is arbitrage on the exchange. So that's what we need. So that's the first part. The second part is it allows participants to share their risk. So it unlocks financing, and the way it does it is by allowing participants to share their risk. So today, if you had any trade finance, first is that we do have a big problem around financing our export transactions, and you will see that the volume exports that we've done has an almost perfect correlation with the kind of financing that has been available to it, meaning that they've all both been in a decline. So, but that's a different conversation. But what the exchange does is that it allows for a financier, a structured trade financier, to be able to participate in a trade where you have a buyer and a seller. And for instance, a seller can then sell 3 months or 6 months forward and lock in a contract. And then since there will be proceeds, and then the exchange is guaranteeing that proceeds of those trades, a financier, which could be a hedge fund, a fund manager, asset manager, or institutional trade bank, will then come in and finance those warehouse receipts or finance against those receivables. Now, part of the hindrance where financiers find it difficult to finance transactions is that there is ultimately a price risk and a delivery risk in every transaction. Now, if they have a relationship and then they understand the performance rates of the exporter, they could take a bet on the delivery risk. But then on the price risk, it's sort of a macro risk that everybody sits on. Now, what the exchange does is it creates a derivative, a futures product that allows you to then transmit that risk to the market. So you as a financier are not sitting on the price risk, and that allows you to then be able to provide more financing. The last part of what it does is then the grading standards. So it ensures that maize can be maize, cocoa can be cocoa, cashew can be cashew across several markets. And where there are issues, then the exchange provides a framework too. So it's first standardization and ensuring clearing and settlement. Second is access to finance, and third is standardization. When you have these three, then you grow the size of the entire market.
Now, two quick questions. We talk about commodity exchange. When someone talks about commodity, you look at cashew, cocoa, sesame seed, and things like that. The ACFTA is saying we are bringing this into the picture because we want African businesses to add value, okay, and not just export commodities, which has been, some say that has been is a colonial economic model, okay, and that's what Africa has adopted over time. Okay? What commodities bring back finished goods. Now, is a commodity exchange, and maybe your commodity exchange, do you just deal with commodities based on the name, or do you also deal with value-added products? That's question one. And the second part of it is an FX open to buyers and sellers from across Africa?
Yes, I'll take the second and come to the first. Yes, we are indeed in our DNA, we are Pan-African with a focus on East and West Africa. In fact, the first business unit that was set up by the group was in Rwanda, and we have presence in a few East African countries. In Nigeria, it's just a big country to deal with, so that's kept us busy here. But we definitely do have aspirations for a few other West African countries. So that's the first. So yes, we see ourselves in 4 to 5 years playing in a few, probably 4 or 5 African countries as we evolve and scale. Now, on the first question about, can you remind me?
Around, so your name, it says commodity exchange.
Base commodities. Yes. So, there are 2 markets. So yeah, so 2 markets. Yes, commodities in the raw sense of the core commodities, but then the second market is a financial market, which we are then able to create financial products on the back of this commodity. So those are the 2 markets we operate. So for instance, in last quarter, we did issue the first warehouse receipt-backed commercial paper, where players on the market could use commodities in a warehouse and wrap it around a commercial paper issuance, and then meet credit rating and how institutional investors invest in them. We raised about $50 million through that instrument. And we also have our warehouse receipt system run in a few large exporting house and trading houses in the country, which they then have financial institutions plug into. So we have those products. Over the next years, we are rolling out repo. We have repo transactions, we have forward trades. Next year, we should be having some of the first futures market in West Africa, futures contracts in West Africa, traded in our platform.
Right.
So commodities markets and then the financial markets.
Right. So you're saying that very quickly, yes or no, if I manufacture a dire in Nigeria, and I want to sell to some parts of Africa,
no,
you can help us.
No. So my job is to ensure that Mr. Tola Fashero has his cashew nut, and his job is to process into a raw cashew nut, and his job is to process into edible, peppered, flavored cashew and sell locally and internationally.
Fantastic. And then Mr. Fashero, to you, and thanks, Mr. Balogun.
And I pushed the question to him. He's a lot more experienced.
So Mr. Fashero, so what can we strengthen the role and capacity of the private sector? And that's why I asked Balogun around the private sector, and then again what the commodity can be. How can we strengthen the role and capacity of the private sector, including member organizations like the NECC, to facilitate development and expand regional cooperation among African countries? Mr. Fashero, are you there?
Yeah, thank you very much. As you're aware, my organization that I represent, the African Cashew Alliance, basically is the what I would call that body that galvanizes all the other associations, which include players in all the value chain, different levels of the value chain across Africa. So we've looked at it, and we've looked into the future, that yes, Africa must have or hold its destiny in its hand, ensure sustainability and competitiveness, and that we're trying to change the narrative, basically ensuring that yes, what we produce, we consume.
Yeah.
We produce, we consume. What we produce, we add value. Okay.
Right.
And then what we consume, okay, we consume what we produce, not waiting for the things coming from America or China or whatever. So, and we have looked at Africa as a space for us to operate. We've looked at the market. We've looked at how do we sustain even how do we encourage our farmers to keep producing? Okay. How do we encourage our farmers? It's when we can consume here. It's when we can have a guaranteed market. Okay. So look at what is happening right now, the coronavirus and stuff like that. For some commodities that depend heavily on raw commodities that depend on foreign countries, okay, in Europe and America or Asia, with coronavirus taking over some of those countries, it completely affects the market for those farmers. Okay, so if we don't handle these things and we are not proactive, there will be increase in poverty. Are you following me? So
yes.
But if we look at the situation, thank God for Africa. Africa today, we are not ravaged by the coronavirus as much as we have in other areas. If we have this market well put together and there's movement, we're able to produce here and move it over there, it's easy. If we consume what we have, what we produce here, it's easy. But if we keep depending on other continents, then it shows we're not serious. So it's a good thing, and it's so you can see this is a private sector initiative looking into the future and ensuring that there's competitiveness and there is sustainability. So it's what every one of us have to keep working on. The chambers, fantastic what they are doing. A lot of collaboration we would want to have with them in ensuring that even what we process here also can get to America much easier. Have a good understanding what the American market requires, and then prepare our processes right from the beginning. One of the problems we notice with some of our manufacturers is that they get into it due to emotions, don't get themselves ready properly, and then midway they're into problems. So that's why you have a lot of failures in the manufacturing sector. Okay, right. But thank God for the support of NEPC, what they're thinking about standardization. Get these people ready and attuned with standardization for the products that will be going out. Okay, and then so that it has limited market spread. Okay, fantastic. So basically,
thank you, Mr. Fasheru. I looked at the chat box. I've seen some questions. Some of them had been we've discussed it. Some questions around, of course, directed to the NEPC, and then it has to do with some issues. I'm not getting the information. Not getting information as it should be. Having issues with the EEG. Mr. Yaro, so the NEPC needs to do maybe a lot more to disseminate information and resolve issues around some of the initiatives that you have in place. So I'll just ask this last question, and I don't know who would like to take it, but I think it's something that is really important if we need to actually if Nigeria has to do well in this new African market. So government seems to be upbeat about the ability of Nigerian businesses to compete in the new market. However, some businesses, and many will say many businesses, think otherwise, and for credible reasons. Okay, some of them we have touched on here. The rubber has already hit the road. The ACFTA is already with us. What would be your recommendation to both parties? So the government is saying, no, this is all rosy, we will do well, we will win, and the opportunities we can conquer. Businesses are saying, I can see the opportunities, but I can't see how to go and conquer. What needs to be done? Very quickly, if you want to take 1 minute each to share your thoughts around what both parties need to do to ensure that there is alignment on what our reality is, and then what we need to do. Maybe I'll start with Mr. Fasheru and then go back all the way to Mr. Yaro. Mr. Fasheru.
Yeah.
The final comments. Yeah.
Basically, it's this is a fantastic opportunity for us as a country to harness and turn into reality the potentials that we have to expand our economy, to take a lot of our people and women, the youth out of poverty and create a safe and a prosperous country for everyone. And basically, it's two hands. You cannot shake with one hand. It has to be with two hands. And private sector, the public sector, they need to work together. They must have a good understanding of what needs to be done, and then we can create a win-win thing for everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Fasheru. Mr. Balogun.
we need to definitely deepen the collaboration between public and private sector. The fact is that Nigeria is a large country. We have close to 1 million metric tons of commodities being exported, and our actions are not synonymous with the size of our trades, but even anywhere close to the kind of opportunities that we could. We look at what government is doing around exports, and we compare it with what countries like Togo that are barely the size of what your states are doing. We are still lagging behind. So, this poses a threat to our trade competitiveness in the broader term. On the private side, I think the FMCG sector have indeed taken the advantage around Africa Continental Free Trade Agreements, and we've seen significant boost in revenues and their profitability over the last sort of 2 years until sort of the lockdowns and restrictions. A lot of the growth in the profitability in the FMCG sector was accrued from being able to trade with neighboring countries. We see huge potential around services, so products, music, arts, soft issues, banking, ICT. But then if we keep having the issue like Twitter setting up their headquarters in Ghana, then we lose that opportunity as well. So yes, the hard trade, but also the soft trades are equally as important.
Thank you, Mr. Balogun. Thank you so much. Mr. Yarrow, you have the final word. Mr. Yarrow, you mute. Yes, you're good now. No, you're still on mute. Still on. Okay, go on.
As I using SWOT analysis, we need to counter the threats that is facing us, especially in the areas of that infrastructural deficiencies. We have the capacity, we have the strength, then we also need to counter the weaknesses that we have in terms of policy inconsistencies, because others are looking at our own population, they want to come in. But this is an opportunity for Nigeria to reduce poverty, to increase employment, especially SMEs. The council has been doing a lot continuously. I think it's almost a daily exercise whereby a series of trainings are being carried out. It's real. I know what my council has been doing, and I've been part of these programs and projects, which are real. And people can see the evidence are there is to upscale production. Without meeting all these areas of weaknesses, we cannot increase production in order to generate the foreign exchange into our economy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yarrow. We have run out of time. I need to bring this session to a close. It's been an interesting one. I'd like to thank our distinguished panelists for sharing their morning with us. And then, of course, we've gotten into afternoon and discussing this very critical subject. We cannot discuss the ACFTA enough. Of course, we will look forward to having them back to come and talk about the subject much later when the agreement is in full swing. It's been a pleasure moderating this session, and I look forward to doing this again. Back to you at the NSCC, Mr. Obadimu.
Okay, thank you very much, Ijoke. That was a wonderful, a bit drawn out though, but wonderful and enlightening panel session. So many important issues came up that were discussed. I particularly noted Mr. Balogun's contribution as it relates to use of standards and access for finance, because all these things are about having goods that are competitive on both quality and price. I mean, if you are going to export successfully, but there are clear challenges. Where we are talking about access to finance, the issue of duality of exchange rates is still an issue. The issue of interest rates too is germane. A case where inflation is around 17–18%, and you can't get money from any financial institution below 20% per annum. Meanwhile, the interest rate on deposits is just about 1 to 2%. I think that's an anomalous situation. Also, how do you produce competitively where there is infrastructural deficit? I mean, we all know the issues about roads and power. Then the issue of banditry and insecurity is also very germane. how do you move goods and services from one point to the other under an insecure environment? So all these factors need to be taken care of if we as a nation are to compete with other nations on our goods and services in terms of quality and price. But these are just my private observations, and they are also as important as the issue of port and transportation that were dealt with substantially during the conversation. Now, Chijioke has run through the questions and that we had posted on the chat wall. I think all of them have been taken care of. We will circulate the paper presented by NAPC to all participants. And on this note, I don't know whether Mr. President has any word before I call on Mrs. Violet Abdulkadri to give the vote of thanks. Mr. President, sir, do you have a last word?
Yes, DJ, I like to thank all the participants, especially the guest speaker. I also want to thank Mr. Yaro, representing Mr. Shegomulawa of the NAPC. And I've really enjoyed Tola Fashiru's contribution and Ms. Sayodele and all the other panelists. Thank you for taking time, and we hope we still have more robust programs like this. DG, thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Mrs. Abdulkadri, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Vote of thanks on behalf of the chamber.
Okay, I would like to thank everybody and all the participants on behalf of the president and the board of the chamber. I would like to thank you for this wonderful and insightful presentation. We all gained a lot from this interaction, and I believe we're all looking forward to making it on a continuous basis for us to continue to learn. So thank you very much for this, and I pray and hope that we all continue to build on what we have on ground to ensure that eventually Nigeria is able to benefit from the AFCTA. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mrs. Abdulkadri, for the vote of thanks. As a wrap-up, again, we appreciate all participants for logging in. We thank Mr. President for granting us the time to be here throughout the session. We thank the secretarial staff. And on this note, we will have to sign off, and we inform our members again of our next program. Thank you, and God bless.